Warning, the following content discusses psychological manipulation techniques. This guide is intended for awareness and defense purposes only. Understanding these tactics is the first step to protecting yourself and others from them. 1. The slow-boil lobster of gaslighting. It's not called gaslighting because they light a match to your sanity. It's because they slowly turn up the heat until you're cooked, all while convincing you the water was always this warm, and actually you're the one who's perspiring weirdly. Sarah used to keep a meticulous calendar, color-coded, cross-referenced. After she started dating Mark, small things began to vanish. "We never agreed to have dinner with your parents on Thursday," he'd say, smiling. "You must have dreamed it." She'd show him the calendar entry. "Sweetheart," he'd chuckle, squeezing her shoulder. "You wrote that in this morning. You've been so stressed at work. Your memory's playing tricks." Then it escalated. He'd move her keys to the fridge, and when she'd find them, he'd say, "See, you're so absent-minded you put them in with the leftovers." He'd recount arguments that never happened with vivid detail, accusing her of saying cruel things. When she'd cry in frustration, he'd adopt a tone of deep concern. "Sarah, I'm worried about you. This isn't normal. Maybe you should talk to someone." The calendar became an artifact of a reality she could no longer trust. Was she stressed? Was she losing it? The water wasn't just warm now, it was starting to simmer, and Mark was the only one who seemed to know the correct temperature. The day she found herself whispering, "Maybe I am going crazy." To her own reflection, the lobster was boiled. Her own mind had become the prison he built for her. 2. The charity hostage of Reciprocal Concession. It's the manipulative version of, "Would you like to donate to save the children?" And when you say no, they reply, "Oh, so you hate children? Well, how about just buying this overpriced keychain then, you monster?" You buy the keychain to prove you're not a monster. Congratulations, you've been played. James's colleague Lena was a master. She approached his desk with a sigh of theatrical exhaustion. "James, I'm in a bind. My sister's charity gala is this weekend, and I need to sell 5 more tables. They're $5,000 each. I know it's a lot, but it's for rescued shelter animals. Can you buy one?" James, nearly choking on his coffee, stammered, "Lena, 5,000? I can't possibly." Lena's face fell, a masterpiece of dejected philanthropy. She paused, then perked up with a eureka expression. "You know what? You're right. That's a huge ask. Tell you what." She leaned in conspiratorially. "I'd be happy just to show some participation. We have these charity mugs, just $50. If I could just put your name down for one mug, it would help me so much. It makes me look like I'm trying." The relief was palpable. $50 was nothing compared to $5,000. He felt a surge of gratitude towards her for being so understanding. "Of course, a mug is no problem." He handed over the cash, feeling like a good guy. 2 days later, he saw Lena pull the same act on another co-worker. The script was identical. The $5,000 table was never real. It was a phantom door she could slam in her own face to make the $50 mug she always wanted to sell look like a merciful compromise. James wasn't a donor. He was a charity hostage who'd negotiated his own ransom down. 3. The poisoned well of love bombing and devaluation. It's like being given the keys to a candy castle, only to have the owner lock you inside and slowly replace all the candy with sawdust, all while asking why you're not grateful for the castle anymore. For the first 3 months, Alex was a monsoon of love. Chloe, who was used to quiet affection, was swept away. Flowers arrived daily at her office. Texts were novels of adoration. He called her his soulmate, his muse, planning a future after only 2 weeks. He mirrored her every interest, becoming her perfect match. It felt like winning the emotional lottery. The shift was almost imperceptible. A teasing comment about her laugh being a bit loud in the restaurant. A sigh when she chose a movie he deemed unsophisticated. Then the withdrawals. Where 50 texts a day had been the norm, now silence for hours. When she'd ask if he was okay, he'd say, "I just need space. The constant need for attention is a bit much, Chloe." Confused and panicking, she'd double her efforts. She'd cook his favorite meal, buy him thoughtful gifts, try to be cooler, quieter, more sophisticated, whatever she thought would bring back the Alex from the beginning. Occasionally, he'd give her a crumb of the old affection, a romantic night, a loving text. and her heart would soar with relief. He's back! But the devaluations always returned, harsher each time. The well of love had been poisoned. The initial ecstasy was just bait on a hook, and she was now a fish flopping on the deck, gasping for the very water that had betrayed her. The addiction to the bombing phase made the cruelty of the devaluation feel like a problem she could solve if only she were better, smarter, quieter, more loving. 4. The Hobson's choice, illusion of control. It's being handed a menu where every item is poison, but the waiter congratulates you on your freedom to choose. Will you be having the betrayal with a side of guilt or the humiliation with a garnish of debt? Take your time. We're very democratic here. Marcus's boss was a virtuoso of the false dilemma. Look, Marcus, she'd say, leaning forward with a mask of confiding weariness, the client is furious. They're either going to sue for breach or we can offer them a full refund plus a 50% credit on future services. It's your project. I'm leaving it in your hands. Which would you prefer? Marcus's stomach would not. A lawsuit sounded catastrophic. The refund and credit would destroy his department's quarterly numbers, but it seemed less dire. He'd choose the refund, feeling the heavy responsibility of having made the call. Later in the performance review, it was cited, and you authorized that significant credit which impacted our margins. He'd been tricked into architecting his own blame. At home, it was subtler. His partner, after a fight they started, would offer, "Do you want to keep arguing about this like children, or can we just drop it and have a nice evening?" Choosing to drop it meant swallowing his valid feelings, but the alternative was to be the one ruining the evening. So he'd silence himself, choosing the lesser poison, and over time, the toxins accumulated in his spirit. 5. The trauma bond of intermittent reinforcement. It's the psychological equivalent of a slot machine programmed to occasionally pay out just enough to keep you bankrupt. You're not gambling for money, you're gambling for a shred of human decency, and the house always wins because they designed the game. Elena's friend Kai was a human roller coaster in the dark. For weeks, he'd be her greatest champion. Memorable nights out, deep 3 a.m. talks where he made her feel like the most understood person on earth. He'd call her his anchor. Then, without warning, he'd vanish. Texts went unanswered for days. He'd bail on plans at the last second with a flippant excuse. Just as she'd decide to write him off, a grand gesture would arrive. Tickets to a sold-out show or a heartfelt apology note that seemed to bleed sincerity. "I'm a mess, Elena. You're the only real thing in my life. Forgive me." The relief was euphoric. The connection felt deeper for having been repaired. Then the cycle would restart. The coldness became colder. The critiques began. You know, when you get needy, it pushes people away. She started monitoring her own behavior. Was she texting too much? Was she being needy? Her world shrank to the size of his attention. The high of his occasional warmth was made electric by the despair of his neglect. She wasn't in a friendship. She was on a Skinner box, pressing a lever labeled "My Dignity," hoping this time it would dispense a crumb of consistency. 6. The reverse victim and offender tactic, DARVO. It's the art of setting someone's house on fire, then standing in front of the blaze to give a tearful speech about how the heat is hurting your face. And why would that homeowner be so cruel as to build such a flammable house? When Rachel finally gathered the courage to tell her father that his constant mocking jokes about her weight had hurt her for years, he didn't miss a beat. First, deny. "I never said that. You have a terrible memory. You're so sensitive." Then, attack. "You're always looking for reasons to be offended. You've been so negative since you moved to the city. Is this some therapist putting these ideas in your head?" His voice dripped with contempt. Finally, the masterstroke. Reverse victim and offender. His eyes welled up. "After everything I've sacrificed for you, the 2 jobs I worked, and this is how you repay me? You attack me? I'm your father. Do you know how much this hurts me? You're crucifying me for trying to be a good parent." Suddenly, Rachel was on the defensive. Her justified hurt was buried under an avalanche of guilt. She found herself apologizing, for hurting his feelings by bringing up how he hurt hers. The original offense was lost. He was now the wounded party, a noble patriarch misunderstood by his cruel daughter. He had not just evaded accountability, he had enlisted her conscience as his personal bodyguard. 7. The ideological Trojan horse of covert conditioning. This is the mental manipulator who doesn't argue with your beliefs. They simply smuggle their own inside, disguised as a thoughtful gift. You're not being converted, you're being colonized from within, one reasonable-sounding suggestion at a time. Ben joined a new social group centered on wellness and critical thinking. The leader, Aris, was charismatic and gentle. He never gave orders. He'd pose questions. Has anyone ever noticed how the mainstream media always seems to stoke fear? Isn't it interesting who benefits from a scared population? Slowly, the group's shared language changed. Sheeple was used in gentle, pitying tones. Complex societal issues were given elegantly simple conspiratorial explanations. Dissent was met not with anger, but with profound, sad concern. I just worry you're still trapped in the old paradigm, Ben. Your cognitive dissonance must be painful. Books and documentaries were offered not as truth, but as alternative perspectives a free thinker should consider. Ben, who prided himself on his intellect, began to parrot the ideas to avoid the subtle shame of being asleep. He wasn't bullied into belief. He was gently, lovingly guided to a cliff and made to feel brilliant for choosing to jump. His own mind, his desire to belong and be seen as wise, was the engine of his manipulation. The ideology was the gift. His autonomy was the city that was sacked. 9. The fog dispenser. Fear, obligation, guilt. This is the emotional equivalent of a subscription service you never signed up for, but the bills keep coming. Fear is the late fee. Obligation is the monthly charge, and guilt is the customer service rep who convinces you it's a privilege to pay. Maya's mother was a meteorologist of fog. Every decision was forecast through this lens. When Maya tried to move across the country for a job, the forecast began. Fear, you know your father's heart isn't strong. The shock might kill him. Obligation. After we sacrificed everything to put you through school, this is how you repay us? By leaving. Guilt. I suppose we'll just be alone for the holidays. It's fine. We're used to being alone. Maya stayed. She took a lesser local job. When she later wanted to move in with her partner, the storm cycle repeated. What will people think? We didn't raise you that way. You have an obligation to set a better example for your cousins. I'll be so worried about your safety I won't sleep. Maya's life became an endless act of appeasing a climate that was permanently set to impending storm. Her own desires for career, love, independence were treated as reckless disruptions to the atmospheric pressure. She learned to cancel her own dreams before they could form, just to keep the sky a familiar, oppressive grey. The cage wasn't locked, it was just perpetually surrounded by weather too frightening to walk through. 10. The Kafka trap of unfalsifiable accusations. It's being put on trial for a crime that has no evidence, where your only defense is considered proof of your guilt, and the judge is also the ghost of the alleged victim. Your innocence is literally impossible to prove because the rules of reality have been adjourned. Dr. Evans was a respected professor until a vendetta was born from a student, Colin, who received a failing grade. Colin didn't appeal the grade. He began a whisper campaign. Dr. Evans is subtly hostile towards students from certain backgrounds, he'd murmur. Did you notice he never calls on her? When a colleague gently asked Evans about it, Evans was baffled. That's absurd! My record speaks for itself. Here's my tenure file with letters from students of all backgrounds. The colleague nodded, uneasy. I believe you, of course. It's just the fact that you're getting so defensive about it is what's making people wonder. The trap was sprung. Evans's every attempt to clear his name fed the narrative. Issuing a statement was an overreaction, proving a guilty conscience. Inviting an independent review was a performative attempt to cover his tracks. Staying silent was tacit admission. The accusation, vague, emotional about hidden bias, had no tangible evidence to be refuted. It was a social virus. Evans watched his reputation sicken and die from a disease whose symptom was any attempt to prove you weren't sick. 11. The Salamander's Tale of Strategic Incompetence. This is where learned helplessness gets a PhD and a management position. It's watching a grown adult turn into a drooling amoeba the moment a chore appears, knowing that the sheer agony of watching them fail at loading a dishwasher will eventually compel you to just do it yourself forever. In their shared apartment, Tom became a sovereign nation of uselessness. When his turn to cook came, he'd attempt a meal so inedible it required pizza as backup at double the cost and mess. "I followed the recipe," he'd wail over the charcoal chicken. "I guess I just don't have your magic touch, Leah." He'd do laundry and turn all her whites a delicate shade of postal blue. "But I wanted to help," he'd say, puppy dog eyes wide. The financial ledger he was tasked with looked like a child's scribble. "Numbers just confuse me. You're so organized." The frustration was a slow drip, eroding her sanity. Arguing felt cruel. He was trying. But the sheer psychic energy of supervising, redoing, and managing his failures became a full-time job atop her own. One night, staring at a grocery list he'd written as foodstuff, she realized the truth. His incompetence wasn't a flaw, it was his contribution. It was a tailored performance, designed to be so grating that she would rather bear the entire burden herself than endure his help one more time. And just like that, he was absolved of all adult responsibilities, having failed his way to total victory.